Okay, so how's everybody doing? Anyway, welcome aboard. When is he gonna get around to building the silly little facade? Okay, so before we get started here, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to fit into this episode what I want, but just to revisit some of the comments, earlier comments that I really appreciate were mentioned about the length of content and so on. Let me just give you a little preamble here first. And there's one other little clip I want to share. It's 4 minutes long. It's something I forgot to put in the last upload, but I can't do. My computer won't handle, like my editing program. My computer won't handle, like once I get over 15 minutes, it starts to bag out. And I mean, I have a really powerful computer. Like if you go right back to the beginning of my content, I think I documented roughly how I built it. Top of the line Samsung SSDs, 32 megs of RAM. At the time, the best CPU, which was a couple of years ago, 87K overclocked. But man, if you go into photo editing at 1080p by 60 frames per second, like not even mention 4K, oh boy, you're gonna really strain that system. And my computer I consider to be a beast, but I guess as the years go by, they depreciate quick. And so if I get into 20-minute videos, it's really hard. It just really slows me down. And so it ends up being like 60% production, 30% editing. Actually, it's probably the other way around. 30% production, 60% time editing, and 10% model building. So you see the tricky balancing act that I'm up against here. And I want to give you the best at what I do and invite you into my space. But I'm going to have to break it down into shorter segments. And if you want to go along with the ride with me, then that's great. If you want to bounce around through the videos, I get that. That's the culture. I do it too. But when I get locked into a channel that I really like, for example, then I want to take in the context, right? If you skip around and then you hear me make a comment, like a blooper or something like that, I'll insert one for you. But it's just a blooper, right? Let me see what it sounds like. Okay, so how are all you lazy buggers doing? I've showed you over and over again. How many times do I have to show you how to scratch build a model?
Oh my gosh.
You know, right? Did you go back and view the context? Okay, so I hope nobody was offended by that. That was just we all think things, right? Like there's a scripture that rings true to that by one of the prophets. It said that the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. So we all think certain things, but we're not going to say them usually because we want to be governed by God's grace, right? But we all fall and slip and fail. But as my dad taught me, fail forward. Okay, so let's fail forward with this project. Let me show you on a piece of scrap though first. So we're going to do a drain pipe, right? And I'm going to use a little bit heavier than I would normally use. So we have, normally I like to use 3/64 rod, number 221, but I'm going to use 1/16 and a little bit larger fasteners or brackets just for the purposes of the video. Okay? So that way you can see it easier, and you'll understand how it'll be relative later on, because these are like telephone poles or utility poles. Drain pipe is often overlooked as well, and sometimes if we can't find it, we think, oh well, I'm not going to put in, but it's really, really easy to build, right? So here's number 103. This is 10 thou by 60 thou wide. 10 thou thick, and I'm going to use 10 thou because it's easy to bend, and I'll show you why or how. Okay, so we'll take a strip of that and a piece of so 103 10 by 60 thou, and then 221 3/64 rod. Okay. Okay, so finally, the guy's going to build something. Okay, so did you ever do a video and then forget to press record? Anyway, that's what happened. But it turned out to be good, or a blessing, because it sets up this piece so I can show you a few other things which I wouldn't have been able to do live because it would have just taken up more time than I needed. Okay, so here's the drain pipe, 3/64 rod, right? Number 221. Disregard these two in a minute, like we'll get to those in a second. So here's the roof, here's the ground. So when I lay on the drain pipe, I'm just going to shoot from the hip on this one. Okay. And I forgot to mention this, like when you have this cement here, put it in a mug, like so that when you're going back for it, you don't tip the bottle over. Because if you tip a bottle of this Plastruct liquid cement, it'll be the last time you ever do it. And I don't want it to happen to you the first time, right? Learn from other people's mistakes so that you don't have to make them all yourself. So, okay, so just going to hold that drain pipe in place. I'm going to flood just a spot there. Usually on the bottom. Here, let me move that over a bit because I want to show you something else here too. So, a lot of times when I lay a strip of something on, I'll just glue just the end of it like this, right? And then press down on it a bit, just to sort of, like it melts a tiny bit and it just grabs, okay? See how fast that is? Okay, so now that that's tacked on, see, I can move that and stretch that if I want. In another case with a really, really thin strip, when you want to get them straight, this is how you do it. You tack one end, and then you have a line, and you pull on it, right? To get it straight. You don't need to do it with this because it's already heavy enough material, but that's how I do the little strips for ditch lights on when I glue a strip onto a piece of tube and you want to get it straight down the diameter of the tube, right? Like when you glue a strip onto a tube on the outside like that, so it'll look like this, right? When you want to run a strip nice and straight down a tube like this, you just glue this part here first. And then you pull on the strip. And then you just run a bead capillary down there like that so you get a nice straight. Okay, so let's see. Let's just run another bead down here. You'll get used to how much solvent to use. Like it's just a little bit of a learning curve. You'll actually learn you can do heavier welds with, if you put a heavier application with it too. And you can actually melt really thin, like 10 thou. You can ripple it and stuff and do neat effects with it if you just put a big puddle and let it sit and move it around, on thin, and it'll make all this really neat dented. Like for you armor modelers, you love this stuff. You can do incredible stuff. When I used to do armor models and dioramas back in the day, there was no replacement for evergreen. We used to use brass too. But okay, so let's put on some brackets. So I'm not going to mark the spacing here. I'm just going to shoot from the hip here, right? So you can see how I have little strips here, and I cut them like I didn't measure the strip and then mark off each one. I just made a half-inch pencil mark here. Right? And then this is what I do. I just rough cut like this. I had a chopper, but it's I don't use it anymore. I don't have time to use a chopper. You'll see why later on maybe, but so I cut all these strips. And then I take my glue, and I usually just give the glue brush end just one rub over the rim of the jar, and I put a bead like that and just tack that on like that. This is why I like really sharp, pointy number 11 blades, right? Because it picks up all those little parts, see? See that? Who wants to do that with your fingers? So put that on like that. Let's just run a few of these down the full length here. Need both hands free here. I learned to be kind of ambidextrous over the years too. I use both hands when I build models equally. Even use a pencil and draw from left if I need to get in somewhere tight or something. But I'm generally right-handed, but I learned to use my left quite efficiently as well. Okay, so there's some brackets laid on, right? Nice and yeah, there's no real symmetry there. I mean, you can if you want. I mean, some obviously prototypically as a modeler, like you don't want to do this, but you know, I don't like to model like that anymore. I'll leave that for the young men and women that want to enter into that sphere. I like to just, you know, shoot from the hip and eyeball things. Okay, so now I'm going to grab tweezers. I like these little guys here. I'll show you how you do this one here. So I take the tweezers like this, and I just push down a bit and pinch it. Hope you can see that okay. Let me try it from this angle. Just open up the tweezers and push down a little ways out, like not tight to the pipe, but a little ways out. That's why you have the extra, right? And then squeeze it against the pipe. Okay? Don't worry if some of them break, because they break in the real world, right? Okay, can you see that okay? Okay, so now that we've pre-bent these braces for the bracket strips to hold the drain pipe, we'll just flood in a bit more glue. I do 3 or 4 at once. If you try to do them all at once, you'll have to put too much cement and they'll melt too much. Here you just I use the end of this stainless ruler just to push this end in, see? You sort of pre-bent them, so it's going to go down nice for you, if they're pre-bent like I showed previously. If you want to mangle them more, if you want to mangle the strip, so see there one broke, but just leave that, okay? Let the randomness of your own folly in modeling work in your favor. Let it represent the world you're creating. Okay, so there's there, and then we'll turn it around and do the other side here. Just slip that under there like that. This stuff is great, man. When you get into the groove, like it takes a little bit, right? As most of you know. But once you get into a kind of a zone, man, you can just, and then you go into like this quiet time building, and then you come out 3 or 4 hours later, and you got this model that you produced. Very satisfying. Okay, so now we've glued down these 6. There's 6 brackets here, but look at how it's random here. See, there's no symmetry there, even though there's even numbers. Remember how I mentioned earlier? Like this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? That's good. This one's got, yeah, but you got 6 here. Yeah, but see how I randomly spaced them? It might have been, you know, repaired, right? We don't know. This is a building from the 70s or the 80s. Okay, so before the glue cures, like you want to get at these quick, and then just nip off you know, the ends. Like, just eyeball it. Don't worry about being perfect here. Like, this is not about perfection, right? Art never is. Just comes out looking perfect, but it's not perfect. So, and then I'm just going to leave that. I'm going to bend that piece and just leave that like that. And then cut that one off. If you get at the stuff right after, it won't fix to the surface. And even if it leaves a little like abrasion point or a scar, just leave it. Because you know why? When you paint that and then you put a wash on it, the rust umber wash is going to catch those little imprints and cuts and stuff. And I mean, that's like invaluable details that you don't have to think through, right? They'll work in your favor. Okay? Now let's just close with this one here. So if you don't want to use the tweezer mark, there's other ways you can do it too. Like this might be faster. Come at it from this end, right? This is why we like to do the detail on the flat first, so we can move it around on the bench. We can push down and in. Push down and in. Just a little ways out from the tube, right? Or the rod. Push down and in. Push down and in. I'm going to leave that one on an angle, see? Push down and in. Okay? And then this bottom part, I'm just going to scribe that for a second, just a little bit. And I'm going to bend that pipe a bit. That's the nice thing about this plastic too, is you can bend it, right? Just going to leave that like that. And back in the coffee mug you go there, glue bottle. I'm just going to put a piece there for now. Okay, press down and in, down and in, down and in, down and in. The reason why you want to do this ahead of time, because if you put the glue in and then press down and in, it'll probably just bust it right off. But like I say, with experience, right, you'll develop your own style and your own, this is not the only way. This is just techniques that I've developed and evolved that work for me. Okay, so I'm going to push that down and in, down and in, down and in, down and in, down and in. And then just to close this off, drain pipe brackets, right? Down and in, down and in, down and in, down. Yeah, I'll just leave that one so it's coming off. Leave that one loose. Okay, so let's cut that off there. Let's get that one. That. If you weather in the genre of old buildings and stuff, all your little mistakes will work in your favor. Okay, so there's, okay, so now remember how we had overrun here? Just come along and, I mean, you might want to leave it though, like, because if you add a roof trim to this or something, right? Like that's why we leave this overhang here, right? If this is the ground though, we'll probably, well, maybe not if we put a foundation block in there, so we'll leave that. Okay? Drain pipes. Thanks for watching and I hope you have a great day.